Make-A-Wish employees, what was the most strangest thing a Make-A-Wish kid asked for and actually received? I worked at a hospice, and we had a wishing program. One of our patients, 24-year-old with brain cancer, wanted to hold a sloth. Apparently, sloths are very nervous creatures, so it's a little tricky to actually hold one. I found a local company that does visits to schools and whatnot who had a sloth. Sloths only poop about once a week, and the sloth could only travel the day after he pooped because they get nervous. Any longer than that, and the sloth has stress diarrhea. So basically, we had to wait until the sloth pooped and then set up the visit for the next day. The sloth pooped on Thanksgiving, so we set up the visit for the next morning. The patient was able to hold and pet a very sweet sloth. The patient died about 3 weeks later, and I'm very happy I was able to help give her some joy in her final weeks. Edit. Wow. Guys, I did not expect this to blow up. Thank you so much for the awards. The hospice I worked at had a special program called Faithful Wishes for any of our patients, regardless of age. As the volunteer coordinator, fulfilling these wishes was part of my job. I do believe there are other non-profit organizations that grant wishes to adults, but nothing as large as Make-A-Wish. Yes, the sloth was tame and lived in an animal preserve. He would also visit schools and retirement communities, schedule permitting. And yes, I absolutely learned more about sloth bowel movements than I ever wanted to. In Wizard 101 there's a quest with an NPC named Brandon, named after a Make-A-Wish kid who played the game, and his request was to design a side quest for the game. You meet Brandon and go help him clear out this dungeon with 2 really ducking hard bosses. Was a lot of fun. At the end you get a gem you can socket that lets you summon Brandon into battle as a follower. Pretty cool. Not sure what ended up happening to Brandon, but it's really cool that thousands of people have gotten to enjoy being a part of his wish. To be honest, he's not the only Make-A-Wish kid in the game either. I know one of them passed away, but he was in the Dino world, so I don't think that's Brandon. After a quick Google I mostly stopped before the first arc was even over, so details are a bit hazy, and the family issued a statement saying how grateful they were that they'd always be able to visit him in game. Not Make-A-Wish, but my brother got terminal brain cancer when he was 18. He was given 3 to 6 months to live. Back then his only wish was to be an NFL player, but he was 5'8", all heart. He was just like Rudy in that Notre Dame football movie. He fought it for 6 years. Somewhere around his 22nd birthday he and I were talking about having something worth living for. I told him it didn't matter what it was, but a vision for the future that he would fight for was important, and encouraged him to find something to give his life to. We went on a vacation soon after that, and because we were broke from medical bills and 4 years of battling cancer as a family, this was a huge deal. We hadn't had a family vacation for a long time. A family friend put us up in their beach house and gave us some money to have a good time there. My brother came alive on the trip. It was so impactful to him that he came home and decided to start a non-profit organization. He called it A Week Away. It was very similar to Make-A-Wish terminally sick patient supply and benefit from an all expenses paid vacation with their family or group of caregivers. That was a big deal to him to include the family, because if you've ever gone through something like that, you know it's not just the patient who suffers and loses their freedom. It's everyone they are close to. He worked his ass off to start the organization. He formed it and began sending families to places like the Outer Banks and Ocean City and other East Coast beaches. A week before he died, he launched his first big month-long fundraiser. He passed away knowing that he had raised enough to send like 10 families on respite weeks. It was like he was passing the baton off to others who could keep on fighting. The org is still going strong today. If anyone is blessed to have their health and a sweet vacation spot you'd like to donate for occasional use by sick people, all coordinated by an awesome organization, I'd encourage you to reach out to the A Week Away folks. You get to play a part in people's lives like the awesome people helping in these Make-A-Wish stories. I worked at a Lego retail store in the 2000s, and Make-A-Wish approached us for a child with terminal osteosarcoma who wanted to be in the store for a day. Lego unfortunately denied the request, which surprised myself and the rest of the staff, because Lego was a pretty great company. Staff decided to honor the request ourselves. We closed the store early on a Sunday, then invited the kid and family in. He had a full run of the store. We collectively paid for like 1,000 worth of toys for him to take home. And just spent the entire evening building with he wanted. He died a few months later. There was a Make-A-Wish kid in a class I taught once, and their wish was to tour a pickle factory. Pickles were their all-time favorite food and they wanted to see how the sausage was made, so to speak. Apparently Vlasic rose to the occasion in a major way, and she had the time of her life. I swear my youngest would make a wish like this. He got Benadryl in hospital once at 1 AM, and they told me it would probably make him pass right out. Well, in children it sometimes does the opposite. He was wired. So here's this 3-year-old who can't sleep in the middle of the night, demanding, "Mom, I want a pickle party." My cousin was a Make-A-Wish kid. He loved golf. Like had a scholarship to go play college. He loved it so much. He got to meet and play a round of golf with Payne Stewart. Unfortunately, he died not too long after that. Duck cancer. Eater Stewart Painter Payne Stewart. You mean Payne Stewart, the golfer who passed away in the plane crash in 1999. Sorry for your loss. But it's cool he got to meet Payne before his early passing as well. I know Payne had a huge passion for helping kids and his own father passed away from cancer, so he had a close bond there with a lot of families affected by the plague that cancer is. Not sure if it's your cousin, but there's a well-known story of the Make-A-Wish recipient who wanted to meet him won't post his name out of respect. If it is your family, Payne took him around for an practice round, introduced him to a bunch of pros like Arnold Palmer and Fred Couples. I remember an interview or anecdote where Couples said that after he saw Payne with a kid who had cancer at the practice round, and how excited Payne was to give him the experience, he knew none of them had a chance of winning. Payne went on to win that weekend and gave the trophy to the Make-A-Wish recipient. Even donated a chunk of his prize money to a corresponding charity for the kid's specific cancer. Payne Stewart's Family Foundation, founded in his honor, does a ton of work to help kids with an eye to getting them into golf if they are interested. Even if your cousin isn't the person I'm thinking of, that's still amazing he got to meet them. I'm a lifelong golfer myself. Had a couple runs at Q School for the development tour. Still compete pretty regular in amateur events and have been lucky enough to meet a lot of the top pro golfers like Tiger, Phil, Jack, Arnold before he passed, and others, but never got to meet Payne Stewart. I know plenty of other avid golfers who would put him near the top of their list of dream foursome to play with of any players dead or alive. So you should know it probably meant the world to your cousin. I had a wish to go to England, where they were filming Harry Potter 4. That's it. Just to go to where they were filming. Got a first class trip on British Airways. Stayed in London for a week. Did a full day at the studios, where I got to eat lunch in the canteen with all the actors and extras. Sat next to James Oliver Phelps. Met Alan Rickman, who almost dropped his tray to say hi to me. Watched the scene after Harry's name gets pulled from the Goblet of Fire get filmed, and got a headset to watch it like the director was. Had a 5-10 minute chat with Dan Radcliffe, complete with a hug. 13-year-old me thought I might just die right there. Got one of his used gym shirts which I still wear, and my own robe fitted for me by Wardrobe. Overall it was a really amazing wish. Edit, because I'm getting this question a lot, and it's a really common misconception that I'd love to clear up, since I think this is actually really important for people to know. It's actually a myth that Make-A-Wish is only for the terminally ill. It's actually for any child who is critically ill. The way it was explained to me a long time ago was that it was for kids who have a lot of weight on their shoulders due to a medical condition, to get a chance to get away from that for a little while. I'm a wish granter. My strangest personal wish was a refurbished status camper, so that she could have her own space. She couldn't go out in public while her transplant was newish, and she was going crazy in the house with 2 younger siblings. It was actually pretty cool. Although the strange part was that more can't actually use things like that. So we had to get her a new VW camper or something like that. It's been a while, and artfully make it look vintage. So strange. Anyways, please feel free to apply to be a Make-A-Wish volunteer. It's such a rewarding experience. And even if you don't feel like you can work with the kids, there's also other volunteer positions like fundraising, event planning, and more. After I survived cancer at 17, I was offered a wish. I went to Christmas Island with my family to see the spawning of the red crabs, reckoned to be one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Picture it. A million fist-sized red land crabs making their way down to the sea edge to release their eggs into the ocean over a period of just 3 hours or so. The Make-A-Wish volunteers looked horrified as I explained it. And I'm typing this now. So yes, I live thanks. Edit, come to think of it, I'm pretty sure my wish caught my family a bit off guard too. I was approached by a similar organization who wanted to arrange a day for a kid to shadow a veterinarian. I'm just a small animal veterinarian with a small hospital, so I found it odd that I'd be approached. I said yes, who TF would say no? And we picked a day and had our regular patients in the hospital, and the kid got to watch us do our thing for a day. We gave him a lab coat and a stethoscope and let him tag along and see x-rays and ultrasounds and watch surgeries. I brought my dog in so he could try the ultrasound on her. He seemed to enjoy it. It wasn't a terribly strange request really. It just seems like my day-to-day isn't something anyone would consider their dream experience. When I was on a carrier, they flew a kid and his parents out. They routinely fly distinguished visitors, but we thought it was weird there was this kid. They got tours and watched flight ops, but he couldn't fly with us, so they asked us to have dinner with him so he could at least meet pilots and ask questions. It was really humbling when we realized this is what he was there for. He literally wished to just come see what we do and hang it with us. I had a co-worker at my student job in college who had leukemia as a child. He wished to be in the Iditarod, so they flew his family to Alaska, and he got to meet all the dogs and ride in a sled for a leg of the race. If I remember correctly, he also got a husky puppy. He was 20 when I met him. I was a couple of years older and graduated college and never saw him again. The leukemia came back and he died in 2016. I don't think he was much older than 25. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. I hope heaven is real just for you, Ben. I was a Black Hawk pilot in the army, and we had a Make-A-Wish kid who wanted to fly in an army helicopter. We had to remove all the seats so we could strap his wheelchair down in the middle of the helicopter, and we flew him around at treetop level, yanking and banking with the doors open for a while. I was a Make-A-Wish kid back in 2017, and my wish was to go see a live brain surgery in Seattle at University of Washington. I loved Grey's Anatomy. I loved Dr. Shepard. And I had brain cancer, so I wanted to see what my doctors kind of saw. What an experience, and learned so much. I was a little neurosurgeon for a day, and the neurosurgeon was playing the Pixies while operating. What a great happy moment. I won't forget. They even sent my family from Arizona to Seattle with me to have dinner with me in the Space Needle. My brother had cancer when we were in high school. We all got to go to an ice skating rink in New York City and play hockey with some of the New York Rangers. He was a Flyers fan. But what can you do? This wasn't actually his wish, but it was set up by the Make-A-Wish Foundation for all the terminal kids at the hospital, I'm pretty sure. This wasn't Make-A-Wish. It was a local radio station. But I swear every single part of this is true. I probably still have the master tape. Around 25 years ago in the mid-90s, in the town I lived in up in the far northwest of Scotland, there was a community radio station. We were trying to set up a local radio station, so we had a 6-week run using borrowed equipment from Moray Firth Radio to gauge popularity and interest. Now the first program in the evening after the news was one run by a couple of high school kids. We'd get a few kids in, they'd record a few idents and stuff. We'd run the idents. Then at 5:05 their show would go up. Tunes they liked. Shout outs to their friends. That kind of thing. They loved it. They had a blast. Just tremendous fun. Now there was one wee guy who was a wheelchair user who wanted to do a program, but he couldn't get into the studio because it wasn't wheelchair accessible. It was up a long flight of stairs in the old nurses' accommodation in the local hospital. And there aren't many wheelchair user nurses, and certainly not in the 50s when the hospital was built. He couldn't even be carried up the stairs because he had severe spinal problems. That meant that his back, chest and internal organs were pretty squashed, and he had to be moved very carefully. He was one very sick wee boy, and there was no way he was getting up to the studio. He was totally out of luck on that one. No, he wasn't, though, was he? Because it occurred to me, he could tape his program with one of the portable recorders we had, Little Marant's high-speed cassette recorder. Give me a track listing, and I'd cut it together, play it to him, and if he was happy we'd play it out for him. He wouldn't get to do it live, but next best thing, eh? So, we did. I dropped off the tape recorder, microphone and so on, and a day or so later I collected it from him with his running order, track list, and a stack of CDs. Perfect. He even sounded like he'd really bashed on his script and sounded pretty damn good. Copy the tape to 1.4, copy the tunes to 1.4, edit it down, and boom. Except, he had a cold, a snuffly snottery cold. Every sentence was punctuated with snee-I snuck SNUMPH snotty noises. I can tell you now that a snee-if is about that long on 4 inch per second 1.4 tape. And also cats absolutely love to play with all this brown ticker tape confetti. You're flooding the bedroom where my editing gear was with, and there were dozens of them. 18 hours of cutting, sticking, redubbing, finding a bit of dead air just the right tone to fill the gap, cutting, sticking. But when his program went to air, he sounded ducking amazing. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.